Hello, everyone. Before starting, we'll just wait for a couple of minutes in case more attendees join the webinar. And while we wait, I would kindly ask that you share where you're joining us from today in the chat. And please also share with us how the weather is where you are. I'm joining from Cambridge, United Kingdom, and the weather today is partly cloudy here. I think. Mhm. Okay, so hello again, everybody. It is so nice to see that we have people joining us from different parts of the world today. Uh, Welcome and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. I'm pleased to welcome you all to this webinar. My name is Pratik, and I work as Communications Officer at the UN Environment Programme World Conservation Monitoring Center, UNEP-WCMC in Cambridge, United Kingdom. This webinar is organized by the National Ecosystem Assessment NEA Initiative at UNEP-WCMC. I would like to thank you all for making time to attend the webinar. The NEA initiative supports countries to undertake national ecosystem assessments and integrate their findings into policy and decision making. These assessments often contribute to the establishment or strengthening of national biodiversity platforms, also known as NBPs. NBPs act as key interfaces between knowledge holders and policy actors. Today, we are joined by an excellent panel, as well as an excellent person who will be technically supporting the webinar. We are also joined by IPES national focal points from Colombia, Mexico, and Ethiopia. Today, we will share practical recommendations to help national teams reflect on and strengthen the sustainability of their NBPs. We will also present examples of national platforms from Colombia, Mexico, and Ethiopia that have taken steps to align objectives, institutional arrangements, inclusive processes, and funding strategies. Moreover, it is our hope that the webinar contributes to knowledge exchange and facilitates peer learning on how these recommendations and lessons learned around NDPs should support the development or refinement of sustainability strategies in different national contexts. Next slide, please. Without further ado, I will now briefly provide an overview of the agenda. First, my colleague Laura, who is the head of UNEP-WCMC's events team, will inform about some webinar housekeeping aspects. After that, Bonita Chavez, who is the NEA initiative lead and senior program officer at UNEP-WCMC, will deliver opening remarks. After the opening remarks, we will have an interactive Mentimeter session to listen to your experiences and perspectives. This session will be led by my colleague Anna Lambert, who is an associate program officer at UNEP-WCMC. After the Mentimeter session, I will welcome Abisha, who is also senior program officer at UNEP-WCMC. Abhisha will provide some background about National Biodiversity Platforms, their roles and importance for science, policy, and practice interface. After Abhisha's session, Vanita will share with us how we can ensure the sustainability of national biodiversity platforms from different angles. After Vanita's session, we will focus on lessons learned from Colombia, Mexico, and we'll also have an intervention from Ethiopia. For Colombia, we will have Carlos Hernandez delivering the session, and for Mexico, we will have SCQ Benitez Diaz who will deliver the session. We will then move on to a question and answer session. I would, however, encourage all attendees to use Zoom's question and answer feature throughout the webinar. The webinar panel will do their best to respond to them. Before closing, Anna will take us through another interactive Mentimeter session to learn from you about some actions that can be taken going forward. And finally, Vanita will deliver some concluding remarks for the webinar. I will now welcome my colleague Laura to the floor to take us through the housekeeping aspects. Laura, thank you so much for joining us today and technically supporting this webinar. We really appreciate your support, and over to you. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Pratik. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this webinar. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. You will have received a notification at the start of this meeting. The recording will be made available to UNEP-WCMC's YouTube channel, which I will link in the chat shortly, and the slide deck will also be sent to all registrants. Your microphone will be muted during the session, and your camera will be turned off to ensure the flow of the webinar. If you would like to comment or ask a question, please use the Q&A feature along the bottom toolbar. And you can post any questions at any time during the webinar. The presenters will reply to them during the Q&A session. If you have any technical issues, please send me a direct message. I can be found in the search bar by searching for technical support. You can also use the chat function to communicate with one another, and we encourage you to post your questions in the Q&A function, not the chat. These will therefore be more easily picked up by the presenters. This session is being live interpreted in French and Spanish. In order to enable that, you will need to click the interpretation button at the bottom of the screen and select the language that you wish to listen to. If you don't need interpretation, please stay on the original audio channel. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, thank you very much, and back to you, Pratik.
Thank you so much, Laura, for those important aspects to know about the webinar. So yeah, now we will have Bonita Chavez, who is a Senior Program Officer at UNEP-WCMC, to deliver opening remarks. Bonita is a project lead for the NEA Initiative, as I mentioned, and she is responsible for the overall management and delivery of the project. Her background includes a master's degree in natural resources law, and prior to UNEP-WCMC, Bonita participated in the National Ecosystem Assessment of Colombia. She was also responsible for coordinating the fast-track assessment for the Amazon region. Bonita, thank you so much for joining us today for the webinar. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Everyone? Yes. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, everyone. It's really a pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar and to see so many people interested in national biodiversity platforms. Today, we will continue an important journey of webinars that the National Ecosystem Assessment Initiative of UNEP-WCMC has begun on natural biodiversity platforms. This time, we will focus on how we can ensure the sustainability of these science policy platforms on biodiversity. And you may wonder why the National Ecosystem Assessment Initiative is talking about national biodiversity platforms. As Pratik was mentioning in his opening, well, national ecosystem assessments have been relevant in developing and also strengthening these platforms in some of the countries. The platforms have supported the development of national ecosystem assessments by promoting this knowledge exchange among knowledge systems and multiple stakeholders. They are also responsible networks that strengthening communities of practice. They build capacities and have enabled stakeholder engagement for policy and decision making. Therefore, this webinar also aims to share an information sheet that the National Ecosystem Assessment Initiative has developed on how to ensure the sustainability of national biodiversity platforms. And this brief document is available at our website, and the link of this specific information document is available in the chat. I encourage you all to actively engage, ask questions during the webinar, share your own experience, and reflect on how these insights have inspired and strengthened your own sustainability challenges of national biodiversity platforms according to your national context. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I wish you all a productive and inspiring webinar. Back to you, Patrick.
Thank you so much, Juanita. And now we will move on to a very interesting Mentimeter session, which will be led by my colleague, Anna Lambert. Anna is part of the policy team at UNEP-WCMC, and she holds a PhD in human geography from the University of Manchester. And she also holds a Master of Environmental Management from Yale University and a degree in environmental engineering. Anna has worked across Latin America, Australia, Africa, and Europe, and has published on topics including jaguar trafficking, climate adaptation, and human-wildlife coexistence. Anna, thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar and creating this interesting session. So over to you. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Pratik, and thank you everyone for joining. So like Pratik mentioned, we wanted to start with an interactive session so we can better understand and learn from each other about the current challenges you're currently facing in achieving the long-term sustainability of your platforms. So to guide this session, the key question that I'd love to hear your thoughts on is, what are the challenges you face in keeping your national biodiversity platforms sustainable and effective? And if you currently don't have a platform, that's not a problem. Just think ahead. If you were to have one, what do you think might be one of the biggest challenges? You can be as specific as you want. You can also be very general. Whatever helps. I think we will all benefit from just learning if there are any similarities across different contexts and countries. As I could see in the chat, we have people from all over the world. So as you can see in the PowerPoint, we have the Menti QR code and also just the code. So if you could please join us using that, and if you have any issues with that, you can put it in you can let us know in the chat, and Laura will try to help us out to make sure that all of you can join. So we'll give a few seconds for that, and as you start joining, you can start putting your challenges. We'll switch to the board in just a little bit so we can all see the. Oh, that's great. So I can already see some of you already putting some examples. Some things might include funding, either being financial or human resources, political support, balancing competing priorities, or anything that might be specific to your institution. So I'll give, again, a few seconds. And I'll start reading some of them. So I really appreciate comments like corruption and things that are sometimes we don't talk about, which are, even if they don't relate specifically to a platform, they do influence in terms of mandate and support. Political awareness, that's another one. Politicians may not be aware of how a platform might be beneficial to them. ownership, that's a really interesting one as well. Technical capacity, a very important one. Also one that I've noticed sometimes we don't think about. It's also all the admin work that comes behind it, so that can also be a challenge. Commitment, yes, because a lot of these things are voluntary. So as you can see, it's very interesting to see that a lot of the countries are facing different women participation. That's a really important one. I'm glad someone mentioned that. Youth can also be an issue, especially if we want to maintain it long term. We want young professionals to be included. Availability of data. So I'm not going to read all of them, but I hope that everyone is able to see them. And the reason we wanted to ask for these challenges is to help guide some of the conversation towards issues that are grounded in your experiences. Yeah, population growth, infrastructure to host the National Biodiversity Platform. These are all really good for us to keep in mind, and hopefully in the next presentations, the speakers will be able to share their experiences. I already know from talking to them that they face similar challenges and some of the examples of how they address some of these. So I'm going to give the floor back to Pratik, but please, if you think of anything throughout the session that you might want to include there, please do so. These are very helpful, as I said. So thank you very much for participating, and I'll join in towards the end of the webinar again. Thanks, Pratik.
Thank you so much, Anna, for that interactive session, which was very well led. We will now move on to a session on the role and importance of national biodiversity platforms, which will be led by my colleague Abhisha, who's a senior program officer at UNEP-WCMC. Abhisha is a biodiversity and development specialist with over 20 years experience, including 17 years experience at UNEP-WCMC. He focuses on bridging science, policy, and practice in biodiversity and international development. He leads UNEP-WCMC's work under the CAPIS initiative, supporting science policy and practice engagement in 38 African countries. This includes establishing national biodiversity platforms, building capacity for IPPES engagement, and co-developing a regional master's program on science policy practice interfaces. Abhisha, thank you so much for joining us today for the webinar. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Pratik. I think that was a very, very, very generous introduction. So I'll do my best to live up to it. Hello, everyone. It's great to be with you online today. I trust you are all hearing me clearly. I hope so. Before I dive into my presentation, I would like to provide a bit of context. Number one, what I'll share, or most of my slides, are influenced by the KEBS project that has been mentioned by Pratik, a project that is working with over 38 countries in Africa to support the engagement with the Intergovernmental Panel on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. And UNEP-WCMC are part of that. We are leading a component that is working with 8 African countries to establish national biodiversity platforms. And these are Madagascar, Ethiopia, Democratic Republic of Congo, Gabon, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Sierra Leone, and Cabo Verde. And the second thing that you're going to hear, the acronym NBPs in my presentation, and I think throughout the webinar today, It's simply an acronym for National Biodiversity Platform. So please commit that to your memory as we go along. The last thing that I would like to say is that my presentation focuses on the foundations of National Biodiversity Platforms, mainly principles and roles. The other country sort of examples, I'm going to come later in later sessions. So let's dive straight into the presentations. Next slide. Yeah, so I'll begin by briefly outlining what we mean by National Biodiversity Platforms. These are spaces, they're actually spaces where governments, science, civil society, indigenous people and local communities all come together to sit at one table to bridge science, policy, practice on biodiverse ecosystem services, but development as well, because you can't really separate nature and people. The goal is really simple: to promote better decisions for nature and people that are inclusive, evidence-based, and also practical. And whenever I actually talk about National Biodiversity Platforms, especially the multi-stakeholder aspect, I always say they consist of a rainbow of stakeholders, each contributing unique expertise, experience, perspectives, with diverse and complementary voices working together on issues related to biodiversity, ecosystem services, and development. And I think that's the true genius of these national biodiversity platforms. All these kind of different stakeholders work together in one space, sharing knowledge, shaping policies, plans, decision-making process, and actions and investments. Next slide, please. So why do these NBPs matter? Yeah. So what I'm going to really do, I'm not going to really go through every single bullet point. I'm just going to really maybe include two core messages for each slide. So why do these NBPs matter? They make sure that a wide range of voices are heard and working towards shared priorities. They also connect, of course, knowledge on biodiversity ecosystem services and development as well to action, turning good information into real decisions for people and for nature. Think of uptake of assessment. Those who participated in the last EPBS plenary, there were 2 assessments that were approved. So think of those at national level, the role that national biodiversity platforms can play in the uptake of those assessments and translating them to their national circumstances and context. Also, even National Ecosystem Assessment. The National Ecosystem Assessment Initiative is working with a couple of countries, and use of those assessments to actually influence decision-making process is very important, and national biodiversity platforms do actually play that role. Next slide, please. So what are what do NBPs do? Again, when I think about the purpose of NBPs and their function, 4 words always come to my mind. That's bridging, sharing, shaping, and changing. Bridging in the sense that they actually connect or bridge gaps between science, policy, practice, and communities, bringing together voices that would not otherwise meet. I've told you that there's all this rainbow of stakeholders who are involved in these national biodiversity platforms. Sharing in the sense that they create space for sharing knowledge, experiences, solutions across sectors really, and the communities that are involved. And shaping, I think this is pretty much forward. They play an important role in shaping inclusive policies and approaches that respond to real needs at national level. Changing in the sense that ultimately they actually drive changing attitudes, behaviors, outcomes, leading to real impact on the ground for people in nature, which actually matters a lot. Then next slide. Then how do these NBPs work in practice? They bring people together, which I've already mentioned earlier on. In fact, the 4 key things that actually comes to my mind when I talk about how they work in practice is planning and coordination, decision-making and policies that truly work for nature and people, linking evidence and local communities, and also shaping better national policies and investments. A very good example is really global processes like EPBs. It's very important. The platform can play very important in that. Implementation of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework to translate it to their national circumstances. National Biodiversity Platform can play an important role in that. Think of sustainable development goals, supporting development of national policies. For example, many countries at the moment are in the process of revising and updating their NBSAPs. And national biodiversity platforms can play a very important role in that. Just think of the steps that, or if you look at the NBSAP journey, stakeholder engagement is very important. And the National Biodiversity Platform, with all this wealth of stakeholders, can actually play a very important role in that stage of NBSAP development. And also really laying the foundation for mainstreaming, because all these stakeholders that I've mentioned, they will have an opportunity to put themselves in each other's shoes, so they can see what actually that NBSAP can do to their mandates. So that is absolutely critical going forward in terms of implementation. And next slide, please. And there is no kind of fixed model for national biodiversity platforms. Each country shapes its platform to fit its own context. In the countries, the CAPS countries that we are working with, some countries have multilateral environmental agreements, coordination committees who are now serving as national biodiversity platforms. In some countries, they've got environmental conservation and networks that are actually serving the purpose of national biodiversity platforms. And in other countries, just really task forces that are actually playing that role. But what really matters is most of their is connecting people, knowledge, and decision. That's what actually sort of unite them together. Next slide, please. And what makes them effective? They work best when people trust. We all know the importance of trust. If there is trust, it's highly likely all the stakeholders are going to do their best to make sure that the NBP sort of function efficiently and effectively. That's why you see in some cases it's very important for the NBP to have some kind of a code of conduct or a conflict resolution mechanism if something goes wrong, or actually making sure that there's clarity in terms of shared purposes of that NBP. And in some cases, when some stakeholders feel like they are not heard, during the meetings, maybe invite an independent facilitator who can actually give that confidence and trust, or bring back that trust, so that at least all stakeholders feel that they're actually included. And the key here is every single stakeholder has to get an answer to what's in it for me. That is really key. If there's a policymaker who has got a real policy question, and researchers who are part of that platform can actually carry out research that respond to that, then there's an interest for them to be actually part of the platform. And honestly, it also gives researchers an incentive, knowing that their research is going to influence decision making processes. Next slide, please. So what do these NBPs need to succeed? Clear purpose, I've already adverted to that. Real support from key institutions is really important, that they actually housed in strategic ministries. I know it can be quite difficult to get like the Minister of Finance involved, or National Development Planning Commission, or some other strategic or powerful sectors such as energy, agriculture, forestry, fisheries, it's really important that at least perhaps if it can have a house, if it can be housed in those institutions, it's going to make a huge difference, because we all know that environmental ministries, departments, and agencies are often understaffed and underfunded. So that kind of creativity or innovation or entrepreneurial aspect to actually decide where the platform is housed is very important. And of course, real support from key institutions. It's really critical as well, and resources, enough people, time, and funding. And my colleague Juanita is going to touch about on these things in detail in a presentation. And they also need to be built to last, not just one short project. We are lacking the CAPS project, that is an 8-year project that is going on until 2030. So we do have that runaway to make sure that at least they become functional, they come up with sustainability strategies, implement those sustainability strategies. Just to give you an example as well, it's important to have a champion. If you could see the photo here, that's the chap who is wearing like a white attire is actually the Minister of Environment in Burkina Faso. The platform in Burkina Faso itself actually got traction with the minister, and it led to the minister actually preparing or supporting a decree that led to the establishment of the platform. And that is really critical in terms of legitimacy, and just make sure that stakeholders feel confident to take part in these national biodiversity platforms. In the CAPS project, we do have a couple of countries that have done that, actually having decrees that have been prepared, that include Democratic Republic of Congo, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, but there are many others who are also in the process of doing that. Next slide, please. And the final sort of slide is going to focus on the key takeaways from this presentation. Number one is that NBPs are powerful connectors. They bring people, nature together for better decision. That is critical. And we're going to hear this more from countries who are actually working on this, who are at the core phase, implementing some of these national biodiversity platforms. And also, it's critical to know that when you invest in NBPs, we set up, you set up like a lasting and, I wouldn't say never ending, but a lasting and solid platform that can actually support governments in making decisions, developing policies in the long term. That is absolutely critical. And of course, the need of champions. I've already mentioned about the minister. So you really need a strong champion who brings energy and strong leadership for these platforms to operate efficiently and effectively. I think that's it really for me. I could probably going to hand over to you, Anita, or Pratika.
Thank you so much, Avisha. Thank you so much for your excellent presentation. And we will now move on to a session by Vanita. So thank you again, Vanita, for joining us today. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Pratik. I think that my presentation will be very easy because most of the things you have already addressed it in the Menti Meta exercise, which is great. And other things have been also been touched by Avisha, but I'm just going to be like highlighting more or less what are the key perspectives when we talk about the sustainability of these platforms. And of course, during this presentation, I will try to bring different lenses, including talking about, of course, funding. We have been hearing a lot, even from the Menti, that when you identify this long-term funding need, but we are going to also talk about how important it is to address sustainability through the lens of the objectives and the vision of the platforms, and of course, with the engagement of these platforms with other biodiversity networks and platforms at different levels, and through their institutional structures and processes. Can I have the next slide, please? So when we think about the sustainability, and as I was saying, usually the conversations also focus more on the need of funding. And yes, we need money, we need financial resources to deliver the work and function in the long term of the platforms. But I'm very also glad to hear that when we talk about resources, we are broadening the scope, not only to address the financial resources, but other sources or other resources that are needed. But if we talk about first about the need of financial resources, of course, when we talk about sustainability, we should think about diversifying the sources of those financial resources that will support the platforms. And in this case, those should be unrestricted and also committed funding, so different kind of resources that are also coming from different sources, from a project in the beginning that could be seen as a seed resource, but then where else the resources, the financial resources will come to the platform to support their work and function. And of course, when we are talking about the sustainability of platforms, maybe the first thing that the organization or the platform should be doing is a resource mobilization plan or a strategy where, as I said, you could address, of course, the fundraising aspect, but it should go beyond the fundraising. And as Avisha was mentioning in his presentation, the resource mobilization of this plan should include the people that is needed, the time, the skills, the political backing, and of course, the need to make visible what the platform is doing, what the platform role and importance is having for decision and policy making. It is very important when you're thinking in funding, just to think about what is the cost that implies the coordination of this platform, what resources in terms of the people and all these things that we have mentioned are needed to organize, for example, meetings, and then to make a real estimate of those costs. But we could also approach the sustainability of platforms thinking about their objectives, vision, and engagement with other platforms, as we said. And the platform objectives also was mentioned by Avisha, needs to keep relevant to society, and if in the way that we keep those objectives aligned with current agendas. For example, the delivery of important global goals and targets, and even national goal and targets. This will support, of course, the sustainability and long-term functionality of the platforms. Of course, also the purpose and the scope should be defined clearly to bring these different stakeholders understanding the value that brings the platform to decision making and policy making. It is very important to have clear mandates and the official endorsements of governments to ensure that the engagement of these different stakeholders and their active participation will support the functionality of the platform. And I'm not just thinking about people from different ministries or from different sectors that sometimes their time is limited, but also we can rely on fellows, on students that are full of energy and committed and commitment for pushing forward this work and support the members, let's say, of the platform and its work. And the engagement of national biodiversity platforms with other platforms and networks at national, global, and regional level is very important, including IPBES. And as Avisha was also saying, this engagement with other platforms help them to keep the platform connected with organizations and institutions, keep strengthening their national capacities or their own capacities, improve stakeholder engagement, and enhance knowledge exchange with these communities of practice, bringing all these issues together in pushing forward the mandate, the purpose, and the work at the long term of the platform. Next slide, please. And the sustainability of national biodiversity platforms could also be achieved if we think about their institutional structures and processes. And what I mean with this is that for example, national biodiversity platform advisory boards or steering committees or any other governance body should include also the participation of these multiple stakeholder groups that helps building legitimacy and increase the influence of these platforms and their impact. And finally, also the sustainability should be ensured or could be ensured when the platform is being hosted by an existing stable institution, also was mentioning before, where this institution offers a solid foundation for the platform with also robust multi-stakeholder network in place already, and the infrastructure needed, as you mentioned, and also in the Menti exercise. So it also provides this space of security already that allows the platforms to have the sustainability needed to continue its work. And so this may help a lot as well. So this is just a few things to think about. Nothing new, of course, according to what we have also heard and share in the Menti. But I'm glad that you are thinking in sustainability in a broader sense and not just only focusing on financial resources. Thank you so much, Pratik. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Juanita, for your session. And before we quickly move on to the next session, I'd like to just point out to our French-speaking attendees that we've faced some technical difficulties setting up the French interpreter today, and we hope to have this resolved very soon. And I want to apologize to you for this inconvenience. And I would like to also just bring to the attention of webinar panelists that we have some questions that some of the attendees have asked in the Q&A feature. So you may please open the Q&A feature and respond as appropriate. We will now move on to the next session for today. And in this session, we will explore lessons learned from Colombia. And this session will be led by Carlos Hernandez, who's from the Humboldt Institute in Colombia. Carlos is a senior specialist in international affairs and cooperation. He is a political scientist with a master's degree in international affairs and cooperation with over 10 years experience in international cooperation for science, technology, and innovation. Carlos has worked extensively within the Colombian public sector, supporting national and international science and technology and environmental agendas. Carlos serves as the Colombia's national focal point to IPES, contact person for the co-presidency of the Consortium of Scientific Partners of the CBD, and also serves as the coordinator for the IPES National Committee of Colombia. Carlos, thank you so much for joining us today for the webinar. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Pratik. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here. As it was being said by Pratik, I'm Carlos Hernandez, Senior Specialist in Cooperation and International Affairs in the Alexander von Humboldt Institute. Our institution, commonly known as the Humboldt Institute, is a public non-profit civil organization that is linked to the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development in Colombia. It was established in 1993 as part of the country national environmental system, which is abbreviated in Spanish as SINA. Our mission is to promote, coordinate, and carry out scientific research on biodiversity in Colombia with the aim of informing public policy, fostering conservation, and supporting the sustainable use of the country's natural heritage. So as a Colombian National Research Institute on Biodiversity, we serve as a key bridge between science, society, and decision-making. Next slide, please. Well, after that brief introduction of the Humboldt Institute, let me address the main topic. The Institute serves as the national focal point for Colombia, for IPBES, a task which is complemented by also serving as the technical secretariat or the coordinator of the IPBES National Committee, an instance created with the purpose of articulating the actions of different actors involved in IPBES affairs and the dissemination of science policy interface matters related to biodiversity. The committee was created between 2017 and 2018, following two major events: the IPBES plenary at Medellin, and the beginning of the Colombian National Ecosystem Assessment that was found and promoted by WCMC. Due to the growing importance of IPBES related matters in the country and the launch of a national level effort to develop a biodiversity assessment, it was decided that it was necessary to establish a national biodiversity platform. Of course, one of the main functions of the committee is to review IPBES assessment, answer to IPBES requests on experts and other activities, promote the usefulness and applicability and the uptake of the findings in the country. The committee also served to prepare the country position for the IPBES plenarization. That's a serve as a key scenario for the dissemination of the result of the national. Of course, the National Committee, allows the convergence of different actors in a common space, including scientists, knowledge holders, policymakers, professionals. The gathering of those different actors and their involvement in the IPBES processes generates, a strengthening of the science policy interface at the national level, and a greater scope for the role of the national focal point in its function of mobilizing, coordinating national participation in the uh, platform processes. Next slide, please, Pratik. So you can take there a glimpse of the current conformation of the committee. It is made up of representatives from various governmental, academic, and civil society institutions. We have from the government the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation, which is called MinCiencias in Colombia, and National Natural Parks of Colombia. And also, we have a very important group, which is the SINA Research Institute. This is a group of 5 institutes created by law. Some of them mixed as public-private institutions like the Humboldt, and others completely public like the IDEAN, which is related to climate issues, climate affairs. Of course, as you can note there, the Humboldt is the national focal point for IPBES, but also the coordinator of the committee, as I already mentioned. We also count with the presence of the academic sector from universities. We have representatives from some of the major universities in the country: the National University of Colombia, Pontificia Universidad Javeriana, the University of Los Andes, University of It. And finally, the committee is also composed by one Colombian NGO called the Fundación Natura, which is oriented to develop ecological conservation projects and protection of the environment. Next slide, please. Okay. All right. So how does the committee actually operate? You can see there like the linear process, but when it comes to responding to answering to IPBES requests, we usually are activated with an official communication from IPBES with a specific request. We receive it at the national focal point, and then the national focal point informs the committee coordinator, which in this case is the same person, who shares the request with all the committee members via email. Members interested in participating or contributing notify the coordinator. At that point, a deadline is set for submitting input, suggestions, or nominations. And once all contributions are received, the coordinator compiles them into a consolidated response on behalf of the committee. And finally, the response is sent clearly, not lynch the entity that has contributed to the process. Next slide, please, Pratik. Well, I just wanted to point out this, that's really important. The committee is also the main mechanism for the articulation and coordination of the national position and the inputs of the working documents for the IPBES plenaries. The committee received a first draft on the position from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we give them a collective feedback, and then specific comments for each of the working documents of each item of the agenda of the plenaries. Next slide, please. And now, well, I think the most important part, what factors have ensured the sustainability of the committee's work? Well, I think first and foremost, the committee is hosted by an autonomous institution with national reach. That's key. The Humboldt Institute plays a dual role, serving both as the IPBES national coordinator and the focal point. And this institutional positioning has significantly strengthened its capacity to sustain and lead the process. Secondly, sustainability has also relied heavily on the willingness and commitment of the members to cooperate. As Abisha says, this is voluntary, so it's really, really important, to count with this strong political willingness to participate. So, since this is a pro bono effort, it will obviously depend entirely on the engagement and motivation of its members. So, as the coordinators, we are always trying to maintain the interest and the engagement of the other institution. And and that's easy in this case because all the institution there shares an interest in the science policy interface for biodiversity. And a third key factor is that members participate in meaningful activities. This includes contributing to the National Biodiversity Assessment on that time, now disseminating its results, providing technical advice to Colombian delegation during IPBES plenary sessions, coordinating the country's official response to IPBES request, and supporting the nomination of experts, as well as the dissemination of relevant call from the Secretariat. Finally, as you can see in that small box in the slide, the committee is also carrying on a set of ongoing activities that are continually evolving. These include the development of new operational guidelines to formalize some processes and decisions within the committee, the discussion on how to better include stakeholders from the private sector, subnational governments, and indigenous peoples and local communities, which are key for Colombia, the coordinated dissemination of assessment findings with tailored messaging focus on right now in the nexus and transformative change assessment. We're planning to do that in the same way for the upcoming assessment on business and biodiversity, and the definition of a joint agenda to strengthen synergies between biodiversity and climate change at the national level. And just to finish, next slide, Pratik, please. I just want to say that, of course, we have some challenges and some opportunities for improvement. In order to strengthen the committee's work, it is considered important to broaden its membership to include, among others, public and governmental entities other than the environmental sector, the private business sector, indigenous people, and local communities, and other civil society entities. So that's really important. We are working on that. To have a broad group of members, be more active in the dissemination of IPBES products and its uptake at the local level. Regions in Colombia need closer ties to IPBES and processes and products. We are trying to make that approach happen, maybe be more relevant in the subnational governments, and we are trying to support this dissemination and this uptake at the regional level. And of course, we are trying right now to strengthen ties with the IPCC focal point and initiate a national discussion on how to better integrate both processes from IPCC and IPBES. In Colombia, the IPCC focal point is part of the IPBES committee, and this is something that we are trying to take advantage on to work, more stronger together. So, respecting the time, I will stop there. Many thanks for your attention, and happy to discuss anything further with all the participants. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Carlos. And I would just like to flag that there's one question for you, Abisha, in the Q&A feature. And if you could look at it and respond. And there's also one question for you, Carlos, in the Q&A feature, which you will see at the bottom of the screen. It's called Q&A. And if you open that, there's a list of questions that attendees have asked, and there's one question particularly for you, Carlos. So if you could answer that, that would be great. So thank you so much again, Carlos, for your excellent session. And now we will move on to the next session for today. Next slide, please. Now we will explore and share some lessons learned from Mexico. And this session will be delivered by Hesekiu Benitez, who's from Conabio, Mexico. Hesekiu works at the National Commission for the Knowledge and Use of Biodiversity, which is the leading institution on biodiversity in Mexico. He currently serves as the Director of Cooperation and Implementation of Biodiversity, leading the coordination on international affairs and the Mexican CITES scientific authorities. At the national level, he has led the coordination of the country study of biodiversity in Mexico, the Mexican national biodiversity strategies, and the strategy for plant conservation. At the international level, Hesekiu, since 1994, has represented the government of Mexico in major biodiversity-related conventions, such as the CBD and the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. He has also served as the national focal point for IPBES since its establishment. Thank you so much, SEQ, for making time to join the webinar today. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much for the invitation to share with you the experience of Conabio in 3 decades. We go to the next slide. Conabio is a national biodiversity platform. It was created in 1992 by presidential decree as a permanent interministerial commission composed by 10 ministries and headed by the President of Mexico. This was part of the decision of the government of Mexico to present at Rio Summit when CBD, climate change, and desertification conventions were born. What do? We had a mandate to gather information and integrate and synthesize information about Mexico's biodiversity. How we've been doing this with the support of scientists, universities in the country to gather information from different collections and experiences and to put it in a platform that is open to the public. But it's not only data, it's to turn this into information. And also part of the important role of Conabio is to be this bridge between academia, government, and civil society. So how to explain complex issues in a simple language so that a politician can understand, or we can discuss very detailed elements with the academy, and also to explain to NGOs, to local communities, what is going on about biodiversity, or how can we work together. So this is part of the key role of Conabio as a platform on information on biodiversity. So there's a lot of things we can do with this information to value in order to conserve the natural wealth of Mexico and to support decision makers. What is the information the decision makers needs? That's a key element. Next slide, please. So how can we present this to be used? Otherwise, it's like a closed book and it's not helping. So we develop intelligence for decision making regarding and intelligence means the capacity to solve a problem. So we need to value sustainability and the use to conserve Mexico's wealth, to know the distribution of species, including endangered species, and also identify places key for conservation and restoration. So we develop along the years strategies for conservation at terrestrial, marine, and fresh waters. Also go into policy advice like national biodiversity strategies or invasive species or plants. And as it was mentioned in the presentation, as acting as focal point, as a technical focal point for CBD, in particular for SOBSTA, or CITES as the scientific authority, or IPBES as part of the national focal point. And along the years, we've been involving into also leading some task at IPBES as part of the bureau, or chairing some committees, or in CBD, SOBSTA, etc., etc. And it's also a connection to some national governments to move into a different scale these activities for conservation, sustainable use, and benefit sharing, and also to developing bioinformatic tools like monitoring wildfires, land use change, oceans, mangroves, about the different information. Can we go to next, please? Information that is useful for the society. What you see in this is mosaic is the number of portals we have open to the public to monitor, for example, forest fire early warning from the south of the US to the north of Brazil, to monitoring land cover and deforestation, monitoring mangroves, biodiversity in different areas, geospatial and marine coastal and reef analysis. Very interesting information now these days with sargassum problems and red tides and so on. Invasive alien species, priority species for conservation, even to mapping incentives to avoid overlapping, for example. This is part of the advice that we gave to governments, or value natural capital assessments also, or other information on the follow-up of different international commitments, or subnational studies and strategies. And another thing that is quite important is to support citizen science platforms, so we can gather information from natural history museums and experts, but also how the society can include fresh information and to combine this information to help into modeling and estimating distribution maps, or to resolve different questions from different users, not only from government. Next slide, please. So it's been a platform developed during many years, but one of the main tasks or decisions is that we decide to, well, we received a mandate to run the National Biodiversity Information System as a governmental entity together with the academy. So we link different universities. We got the trust to get information, and the backbone of this system is information from specimens from museums all around the country and the planet, in addition to information like satellite maps, vegetation maps, ecosystem monitoring, early fire, as I mentioned, and the developing of statistical and analysis tools and bioinformatic developments for modeling, together with a myriad of experts. So working together with experts, getting the information, giving added value, and used to respond to concrete questions to support decision-making is part of the key functions of CONABIO. Next slide, please. This turns after many years, and also getting support for many of the projects from the government and also some international agencies, because part of the success so far by CONABIO is that we have a private trust fund that can receive donations from governments, but from other sources as well. We already gathered more than 48 million records from specimens from Mexico, support a number of projects, about 1,000 projects, and generating different databases with validation of the quality of that is getting into the system, and the developing of the different tools. So we have information of invasive species, more than 50,000 maps, and remote sensing images, more than 500,000, and photographs, 250,000, and publications, and different posters that are all publicly available. This is also very important. This information is accessible by anyone who can get into our website and also can make specific requests. Next slide, please. So it's been a long way. I'll be very quick on some examples of, for example, early warning systems. Since '99, we're monitoring with different levels of resolution early fires. So we are connecting to different users to, in a couple of hours, sending the messages. Even we develop specific pages for all Central American countries, as an early warning system, so they can decide, depending on information, to where to give priority, if it's in a protected area, it's in a agricultural field, whatever, to support decision makings and timely. Next slide, please. Another example is the monitoring system of mangroves. It's very specific, very precise in terms that is validated not only in satellite, but also in situ validation to identify places where we are losing, or even when we are getting more coverage of mangroves, because this is possible when restoration programs are successful. This is also part of the information. Next slide, please. Or marine information on this. This is just a sample of the many platforms we have to cover information on coral bleaching, sargassum, red tide monitoring, marine water quality, ocean acidification monitoring, also to support decision making almost in real time due to permanent connection with different satellites and processing all this information. So this is part of the support for decision making in our platform. Next slide. I know I'm over time. Citizen platforms are also very important, as I mentioned. So we have a taxonomic catalog to validate information that we're getting, materials for education, even websites for children, and the bank also with I mentioned many digital images to support the work of many people. Next slide, please. About lessons learned. It's important to maintain, so during these 3 decades, we collaborate with 7 different presidents, with 13 different ministries of environment. Everyone has different styles, so it's a challenge to maintain operations with different governments from different parties, but putting information and the utility of this information to support decision making is very important. So maintain different sources of resources is quite important, not only to depend on a single one like the federal government. Sometimes there's shortage on public budget, so to have the flexibility to get from other sources is key. Also, to keep a manageable structure, so not to grow like crazy. This is something that can collapse institutions if we are so many people. To avoid hosting biological collections, that was an internal discussion we had with INBio and Humboldt and Conavio. We let the biological collections for universities and museums. We support them, but we did get information. To establish strategic alliances and partnerships is also very important, as with WCMC. Keep public access to data. This is also very important. Support and advise decision makers by analyzing information, consulting with experts, develop added value outcomes using bioinformatics tools and scenarios, and keep serving this function of translator and interpreter to government, academy, private sectors, and civil society. So this is what we like to share with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Execute, for that excellent presentation and sharing lessons learned from Mexico. And I also just quickly want to thank all the panelists who've been working hard behind the scenes and answering the questions that we have. Thank you so much. So I will now welcome Dr. Felike from Ethiopia to the floor before we formally begin the question and answer session. Dr. Felike is an ethnobotanist by profession from Ethiopia. During his 30 years of professional service, he has been involved in different academic and administrative responsibilities. Among other roles, he has served as the Director General of the Ethiopian Biodiversity Institute and the President of the Arba Minch University. He has also served as national focal point to IPES and CBD's Substack. Dr. Felike, thank you so much for making time to join the webinar today. And my first question to you would be, what are the main drivers that keep your national biodiversity strategies active and running? Platforms, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Pratik, for the introduction and also providing the opportunity to make some reflections. So basically, in Ethiopia, we have a biodiversity strategy, so which is compiled in the form of National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, or NBSAP. And this strategy have been maintained, and it keeps going. The drivers are, in the first place, the recognition by the concerned parties or entities that Ethiopia is a mega diverse country endowed with an enormous biological resources, and this biological resource is very much important to the livelihood of the local community, people in general, and also for the development of the country. So because of this, a special attention or significance is attached to biodiversity. So there is an intention to maintain biological resources or to conserve biological resources and maintain ecosystem services that are originating from biodiversity, because the lives of the majority of people are very much linked to biological diversity. And of course, there are opportunities in the country to pursue the cause of biodiversity. Not only that, there is a political commitment, preparedness by those concerned, although there is a significant lack of awareness in some of these areas. So all this contributed just to really stick to the principles of conserving biological diversity for the benefit of the present as well as the future generation. Yeah. Can you hear me? I think I have responded. Yeah.
Sorry, I was on mute. I hope you can hear me now.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, thank you so much for responding to the question. And my next final question would be, what are some of the main challenges your platform has faced and how they have been addressed to ensure its sustainability and effectiveness?
Yeah, the challenges have already been expressed by previous speakers, including Abisha, Juanita, and others. So, of course, they are speaking I would say, at the global level. So we are on the ground, and we really witness the problems. So we cannot give a secondary importance to financial constraints. So this is a very important challenge or factor. It is with when you have financial resources and capacity that you can translate your plans into practice or into activities. So this is one problem, but we try to overcome this problem, for instance, by pooling resources. Fortunately, in Ethiopia, we have the Ethiopian Biodiversity Institute. It is a very important institutional structure. Only some African countries have such institution. What I know is that of South Africa. So then resources are allocated by the institute that comes from the government, it means, and we use other opportunities. We have been using the BaseNet project fund to enhance the functioning of the National Biodiversity Platform. Not only that, CABES has been very much supportive in this regard also. So this is the first problem, but there are other problems too that are worth mentioning. For example, familiarization of the NBP itself is one problem. And again, just we try to familiarize the concept through the support of CABES itself and also BaseNet projects. And there are a lot of other problems or challenges, but one important challenge I see is there are competing interests. So, you know, conservation is, we cannot say conservation is top on the agenda. You know, there are other priorities that attract the attention of the government, the policymakers. But, you know, the Ethiopian Biodiversity Platform has attempted to bring together stakeholders from the different realms. That means policymakers, the scientific community, and actors on the ground. By the way, our National Biodiversity Platform intends to mimic IPBES itself. Of course, it has issues, some more issues and some less issues in relation to IPBES. But, you know, these actors come from from the parliament, the policymakers, down to local communities and the media. So through this process, we always try to solve the problem and maintain sustainability of the platform.
Thank you so much, Dr. Filike, for providing us such a thorough and comprehensive explanation. That was really useful. I'm just looking at the open questions that we still have. And once again, a big thank you to the panelists who are responding to some of the questions in real time. I think we have time for only maybe one or two questions more to discuss. And in that case, I'll probably share this question by Senka, which is still open in the question and answer. And the question is, given that the National Biodiversity Platform should also open up space for national science policy dialogue, so how can we ensure a more binding influence on decision making? The question is particularly important for countries in the early stages of National Biodiversity Platform. So I would open this question to the panelists. And Dr. Filike, maybe you can respond to that.
Yeah, this is important. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this is a very important question. So the platform should be a kind of a meaningful institution that can exert impact, particularly on policy making. This is a component which we miss. As Abisha mentioned, the national platforms can take different modalities. But in the first place, it is important to be inclusive because IPBES promotes inclusiveness. As I said, we always try to stick to the principles of IPBES. So inclusiveness, in addition to relevance, credibility, and other things that are mentioned in the concept note are important. So that, a broader spectrum of stakeholders shall come on board and contribute its part. So then this can go to the policymaker level. And one important thing here is that when such institutions are established, this should be by a kind of, a decree. I mean, there should be a kind of legislative framework that supports the institution. And in relation to this, the platform can be effective and achieve the intended goal. One problem which we are facing, we have been facing, was that our national platform was established at the end of the national ecosystem assessment. The issue came lately, but we tried our level best. It was chaired by the Minister for Agriculture and co-chaired by the chair of the standing committee of the parliament in Ethiopia. But it didn't have a legislative background. Now we are working on a kind of directive to be issued that gives a mandate. And of course, this is important to enforce what is stipulated in the establishment guidelines and in other things. So it is important to have a kind of legal support so as to have the platform effectively functioning. That is my reflection.
Thank you so much, Dr. Filike. Thank you. And maybe one final question that we can discuss, and that question I see is by Bhavna. And the question is, what mechanisms can be used to improve data quality and interoperability across national biodiversity platforms, especially when integrating citizen science data or community-based monitoring? I would open that question to the panelists, and whoever feels appropriate can please jump in to respond. HESIQ, maybe you can respond to that.
Sorry, I was trying to respond to the previous question from Senka on the.
Oh, no problem, no problem. I will repeat the question again, which is, what mechanisms can be used to improve data quality and interoperability across national biodiversity platforms, especially when integrating citizen science data or community-based monitoring?
Okay, this is a complex issue because quality is so important to get into your systems. If you get some doubtful or trash information, you're going to get trash your outcomes. So at this in Conavio, we're very keen that when supporting projects, we analyze the deliverables. In some cases, the main content, the outcome is a database. So we have protocols and specialists that analyze the information in terms of adequate scientific information, right scientific names, validation, geoposition before this information is going to the main databases, because that info is going to be used for many other purposes. So by filtering this information, by ensuring the quality, it is better when we work with universities and experts, because also we provide some software to enter the information to ensure quality, because we're also part of the GBIF, the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, where there are some standard protocols. This is when you're talking about information from specimens. But for example, with citizen science, we also have some platforms where there are some curators of the information. So we qualify every record from the public to say this is an observation, or if validation is correct on the identification, depending on the group and the date and the location, we mark as the grade of this observation as useful for research purposes. This is a way to qualify the information. And so we try on the different ways to standardize information. Also, when talking about maps that are available or platforms for modulating, every of these big processes require a process of validation. So we're very careful on this part. And regarding the question from Senka on how to make this platform useful, we need to be as close as possible on decision makers. And decision makers are not only the president of the republic or the minister of the government, also is the people that is daily doing forestry, agriculture, fisheries, different activities. So it is important to create materials with simple language for easy access and to understand situations and what are the measures that can be taken into account, but also to get close to politicians, to ministers, even to use political elections as an opportunity for briefing candidates on important matters on environment and biodiversity, and what can they offer also to address key causes of biodiversity loss. So we need to be creative, we need to be very active, and to look for opportunities to raise the issue with solid information behind to support these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, HCQ, for your response. And I think we can now finish the question and answer session and move on to the next slide, please. So we have another final Mentimeter interactive session. While I think we're a little bit out of time, but I would kindly request Anna, if you can take us quickly through this interactive session to learn about what actions we can take forward. And thank you so much to all the attendees who are still part of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And yes, I won't take too much of your time. We just wanted to make sure to have this final reflection moment and see, from starting the webinar where you reflect, when you've stated your current challenges, and then throughout the presentation and learning different models and experiences that the panelists have shared, such as Colombia's having an autonomous institution but rooted in national research, or Mexico, who have nearly 30 years of making their platform sustainable. So if you could please go into the same Menti, we put up the QR code again. And can you now answer the question of what specific actions are you planning to do after hearing these presentations, having the time to reflect on how you might go about addressing your specific challenges to your specific context? And again, we do this to learn about what the other is doing, get some ideas of what others might be planning to do. So just as an example, we can switch to the Menti to see what everyone is answering. But for example, if one of your challenges was that the platform relies on one person that might leave, so the future action could be plan to document the processes and train more team members so that knowledge isn't lost. So sort of those grounded actions. Yeah, the increased stakeholder participation, of course, like incorporating private sector, which we sometimes miss. Yes, data collection, student participation. I think, yeah, Juanita mentioned something about this as like fellows and everything to keep. Yeah, more political involvement, dialogue with government and users. Yeah, I think. Yeah, so all of these contact elected officials, that's a very grounded one that would, address the challenge of having political support. Interesting, making the platform more accessible for CEO, private sector, and government, citizens. So all of these actions will, improve, even if you don't have your platform going yet or early stages. When you think about the challenges that might occur and what you might do in the future, that will also help you draft a strategy to ensure the sustainability in advance before you encounter these challenges. So if you have more thoughts, please keep including them. I won't take more time of Juanita closing remarks, but first I'll give back the floor to Patrick. And again, thank you for all the panelists and participants to be in here.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much for facilitating that session. And Juanita, one final time, over to you for the closing remarks for today's webinar.
Yes, thank you very much. And I am so pleased to see still so many participants joining, even though we have go beyond the time of the webinar. And this is because this is a very relevant topic. And I hope that you had really enjoyed the webinar and had found all the information provided from our excellent participants and panelists useful. Just for closing, I would like to thank our donors of the National Ecosystem Assessment Initiative Project, IKI, and UNDP. And of course, El Siquio, Feleke, and Carlos for those excellent presentations, sharing from a very honest perspective how you have faced the work of the platforms, and of course the sustainability for the long term of the work of these platforms. Thank you very much also to Lara for all your technical support. That has been great. And just in case you would like to join this Subglobal Assessment Network, which is a very broad network of organizations, people, stakeholders that are interested in ecosystem assessment, I will encourage you to go through the QR code and register yourself there. It is a very good form or way to be updated on upcoming webinars and events, and share with a broader community of practice what you're doing. So please go ahead and do. And thank you very much, and have a lovely rest of the day or week for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Adiós.